council against affordable housing in San Antonio. And housing is important in San Antonio because there's about 51% of San Antonians are one paycheck away from being homeless or homeless. And this is data coming from St. Ministries. And last summer, I spent about 2 months shadowing Nikisha Baker at St. Ministries. What I also want to see more of is low-barrier housing efforts in San Antonio, where we can get people off the streets, rehab, and get them ready to work with opportunities in the job market. Third, I want to also help our youth in San Antonio. We have disconnected youth, which is people, young people between 16 and 25 that are not working or studying. We need more after-school programs to get them off the street and off trouble. And that's what I want to double down on. Those are 3 examples of how I want to be proactive as mayor.
Thank you for the question. To your point about some of the root causes, I think we first have to look at the immediate process to ensure that folks are not prematurely evicted from their home, right? I think that's really important that folks are afforded due process, especially as we enter a time of more economic uncertainty where folks will become more challenged in paying those costs. We also want to make sure we're working very closely with the county in areas of mental health, for example, as well as substance abuse, to ensure that we are meeting the need as best we can, again, in light of the uncertainty in our own budgets. I think we need to invest, looking at the upcoming bond, in more permanent supportive housing. I also had a conversation longer term. I think we also need to clear as much headspace as we can to ensure that folks have a place to land. Opportunity Home, for example, is a place where we need to ensure that we are helping people become self-sufficient to meeting that 5-year goal that they have, and looking at city investments, whether that's childcare or helping folks get their GED, or even transportation that allows them to do that.
Homelessness is everywhere. But the root cause of homelessness, though, is basically poverty. And that doesn't mean that everybody who's poor becomes homeless. But you also don't see wealthy people or even middle-class people homeless. They have resources to take care of themselves. What we need to do is we need to provide better resources to help people so they don't become homeless. That means we need to have more housing, more affordable housing. That means we need to have more jobs and better paying jobs. That means we need to have better health care so that people stay healthy. You know, we can't afford, or we don't have the resources, for example, to treat people who have mental health issues. We don't have enough beds for people who need to overcome alcoholism. We don't have enough treatment beds for people who are addicted to drugs. Yesterday, I had before City Council announced that we are going to release $60 million of debt to people who owe money. 45,000 families are being affected by that process.
In spite of best efforts, year after year, we continue to have systemic poverty in this community. Let me tell you why that is terrible. And that is because poverty is the root condition that drives many of the problems we have today, like homelessness, like crime, like our public health issues, like neighborhood crime. And so what I propose we do is let's start tackling that issue of poverty. And my plan involves ensuring that we have quality education, that we focus on making sure that we have the opportunities from an economic development perspective, that we bring jobs to this community, and then also that we focus on fiscal responsibility so that we can focus on the right things, investing in the right things, and that way we can at least start the process, because homelessness is just an extreme form of poverty. So we have to be able to address it. We have to be able to work with our NGOs that are already tackling that issue and make sure that they're well funded.
The 3 pillars of my focus as I'm running for mayor are housing, healthcare, and economic empowerment through education. That is a proactive approach. Upstream services are needed. During my tenure as the San Antonio Housing Trust president, for the 3 years that I've been president, we have created more than 7,000 units of housing. We need to continue to invest in housing. The strategic housing implementation plan, we're far from achieving our goals, and we need to continue at it. One of the things that I would love to propose is that housing bond. We don't have to wait for the next housing bond.
they always start with the point in time count. About 3,000 individuals in this city are unhoused. I don't buy it. I think there's a lot more. But what we're looking at is how to fix it. How do we get them in housed? And that's super important. But we're always talking about putting the fire out. What we have to figure out is how did the fire get started? So we're looking at, one of my big initiatives is for foster youth. The vast majority of unhoused people have spent some time in the foster youth. So I'm really proud to say I led the effort at the city to spend $7 million, the only municipal investment, so the largest municipal investment in the state of Texas for our foster youth. Because over and over they keep telling me, Melissa, you got nothing to do with that. The city has nothing to do with foster children. But we can, we still represent them. So taking care of our foster youth, taking care of people with mental health conditions, people with substance abuse issues, and making sure we stop that fire before it starts.
Our fourth question will be asked by Rebecca Carrizales of the West Side Business Compañero. Her question will go first to Ms. Ortiz-Jones.
Hello, good evening. Kelly Air Force Base once helped build San Antonio's Mexican-American middle class by providing good jobs for residents of the West Side. Today, Port San Antonio is continuing that legacy through careers in innovation and advanced technology. But many residents still face barriers to accessing the training needed for these high-paying careers. As mayor, how will you invest in and expand workforce development to ensure local talent, especially from underserved areas, can benefit from the opportunities these major employers offer?
Thank you for that question. I think we've got to do things at a couple of points in time. So first, as early as possible, we know the highest rate of return when we invest in people is always early childhood education. So I'm very thankful for pre-K for SA as it exists today. First 100 days, though, I want to understand, hey, how many kids in our community are unserved as a result of the current structure of the program? How much talent are we leaving on the table? And two, what's the cost of that? Right? If we wanted, I would argue that's a bill we can't afford to not pay. Secondly, I think it's important that when we are thinking about connecting kids with opportunities, you kind of got to see it to believe it. So how can we support and work with public-private partnerships to invest in paid internships that help folks understand what are some of those opportunities? Certainly having also strong relationships with our community colleges, so that is in fact a pipeline to those good paying jobs, not only at Kelly, but also at Brooks and all throughout our community.
We know that we've lost a lot of jobs in this community over the years. Losing Kelly was a big blow. What we need to do is we need to continue to create more jobs in this city, more jobs and better paying jobs. In order to do that, your next mayor needs to go out around the country and be the advocate for bringing those new jobs to San Antonio. San Antonio is a city of opportunity, and we need to grasp that message and take it out around the world and around the country. But we also have to show that we're able and capable of doing that work for those companies who come here. And that means we need to continue to support our education. The state of Texas does not support public education. The city of San Antonio needs to step up. We have a work program that we put in place that's helping people get trained. We need to increase that partnership with the community college, with our four-year institutions. Businesses will come if they know we have an educated workforce. That needs to be our focus.
Well, we have to protect public school funding at all costs. When companies look to come to a community, the first thing to look at is the workforce. They want to make sure that they have a pipeline of qualified workers, of qualified individuals who will fulfill those jobs that they need. And so yes, we have to focus on our youth. We have to make sure our children get educated. Particularly, the public school system needs to be well funded so that we can have quality teachers, quality environment, that we can then be able to turn them into productive citizens. I would love for every child to make it through college, make sure, but not all of them will do that or would want to do that. So also our trade, skills training is very important. And so I would love to fund a program that focuses on those things and match those skills to the needs of industry, because we also have to understand what the industry is asking for. So I would be all in favor for funding our schools districts the way they need to be funded, and making sure that our workforce development upskills those individuals that didn't have that opportunity.
I have the honor of representing Port San Antonio in District 4, and I've seen the growth, and I've been supportive of it. We've recently been able to bring Workforce Solutions Alamo, and we've been able to expand some of the programs with Ready to Work with some of the employers. We need to continue to focus on the jobs of the future, cybersecurity. We have the mentorship there. We also have the on-the-job training that can help some of these students that maybe hadn't been exposed to some of these careers, in particular in STEM. Grateful to have the San Antonio Museum of Science and Technology that starts letting their minds imagine. But we also have to support the workforce behind the workforce, and that's daycare. That's childcare in particular, because even though there might be access to transportation at the port, even though there might be readily available jobs, we absolutely need to invest in daycare and childcare so that people are able to work. And we need a healthy community so that we can have a healthy economy.
Thank you for the question, for bringing up Kelly. I think that Kelly AFB very much created District 6, and I think you're right that it is the Mexican-American middle class. Matter of fact, my late mother was a civil servant there and a union leader. So I've taken a lot of pride in that. To the question, we have to talk about Ready to Work. It's not working. It's not working the way it is. So we have to expand it. I have introduced a policy to expand Ready to Work, not just for second chance folks, but for kids, including in high school, a cybersecurity program, so they can graduate from high school with certifications enough to earn $70,000 right out of high school. Our high schools have trades. There's very good systems in our public schools for trades. We need to expand apprenticeships. We need to expand those trades. We need to support them. And we also need to talk about professionalizing childcare. Let's include childcare in Ready to Work, because we all say there's no childcare, but we're not helping people get hired.
So almost 3 years ago, I started this nonprofit called Better Futures Institute here on the West Side. And our goal, our North Star, was to train young Latinos to go into STEM careers. We have trained over 30 of them, and now they're earning over $60,000. And that's a big win, and that's what we need to see more in San Antonio. We need to prioritize Ready to Work SAT training to the modern economy. The emerging trends in our economy are cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, bioscience, aerospace. But what I want to do is partner with ISDs, public schools, and introduce the concept of modern trades, training to the skills and the certifications that cybersecurity companies are looking for. I employ those people. They don't need a 4-year degree program. They need a certification, and they also need their clearance. And it's the same with partnering with Alamo colleges and UTSA. We have the talent here in San Antonio. And at the same time, what I want to do is bring back the trades to high school: plumbing, electrical work, HVAC technicians. We are a service-oriented economy. Let's make it happen. We have the talent center.
Our next question will be asked by Ruby Chapa. She's Director of Programs and Development for the Maestro Entrepreneur Center. Mr. Courage, you'll get to answer first.
The city and other local public agencies have taken steps to leverage public procurement as an opportunity for economic growth through the Supply SA initiative, which focuses on contracting with small and local businesses. But with increased scrutiny and legal challenges to programs like HUB, DBE, and anti-DEI orders, what will you do as mayor to make sure San Antonio doesn't go backwards and our local small businesses still get the support they need to grow and succeed through public procurement?
You know, I appreciate the fact that we have several organizations, both on the east side, the west side, the south side, that are focused on supporting the growth of small businesses. I know Maestro is one of those groups. The city has in the past supported those organizations, and the city needs to continue in the future to support those organizations. I think when we look at the city and the partnership we've had, these are the incubators that help develop new businesses, help support new businesses. The city has its own incubator, Launch SA. I think we need to continue to support that. And we need to make sure that we educate the community and what the resources are, but also the city needs to be there with those resources. For example, when we went through the pandemic and so many businesses were hurt, the city needs to be able to fill those gaps that businesses run into when we run into such tragic situations as those. I think the city is the backstop for small businesses, and small businesses are the lifeblood of San Antonio.
20 years ago, Mayor Ed Garza appointed me to be chairman of the SPEDA committee, the Small Business Economic Development Committee. And we were the ones who put forth the SPEDA ordinance that protected our small businesses, that made sure that small businesses were included, that made sure that we gave priority to San Antonio local businesses. And that's going away. That's actually gone away. We need to bring it back because it's our small businesses. They're the backbone of our community. Small business owners put everything on the line. And to cast them aside the way they're being cast aside is not fair. So we have to make sure that we give them the tools that they need to be able to compete, particularly for public contracts. And right now, for instance, in order to be able to qualify for those, you have to have bonding requirements that are unreasonable for small businesses, and so they cannot participate. We've got to be able to work with them so they can participate, so they can grow, and then so they can go and hire people and continue the virtuous cycle.
One of the first things that I did when I started on council 6 years ago was submit a CCR, City Council Consideration Request, to create a true small business advisory committee. I wanted to make sure that small businesses were at the table as the city was making decisions. I think that we need to continue to involve that committee in decisions that are coming up before us. Now, we absolutely have to support our small businesses. We have to support the fact that if there are projects like Project Marvel or the stadium that we just heard about earlier, that small businesses are included in that, that small businesses in San Antonio are prioritized. And how we do it is by working together, by continuing to invest in the organizations that are doing the daily job. I always say city council is not the expert, so we should invest in the experts and get out of the way and do what they ask us to do.
A couple of years ago, we voted on a $10 million contract to promote the airport, to do PR and marketing for the airport. A white-owned company received that contract. I raised my hand and I said, how many companies with partnerships, people of color, were even in this bidding? None, not one. So I started calling them. I asked them, you have plenty of people of color that run PR firms in this city. And I started calling and asking them, how many of you knew about this bid? Not one of them. Turns out that white-owned company got a call from the city to bid for it. So what happened? They got it. They weren't even there for the award. So under my mayorship, that's not going to happen. It's going to be equitable. Fast forward a year, and the other council members on this table voted against SPEDA. They weakened it and practically eliminated SPEDA. I'm the only one that raised my hand and said that this wasn't right. We still need SPEDA. We need to make sure that we're helping our small businesses of color to ensure equity. Thank you.
When I think about small businesses doing business with the city, it's so hard. We gotta make it easier for small businesses to conduct business with the city of San Antonio. And not just for a few small businesses, all of them, the ones that are just starting out as well, and that don't have that background, right, of connections, influence at the city level. I know what it takes, to make payroll. I run a business, and it's a lot of headaches. At the end of the day, what I also want to see is less bureaucracy at the city level. That's why I commend Supply SA. And I want to push that effort forward, bringing down those walls of bureaucracy. Third, I think it's important that we get our small businesses off the ground. Efforts like Launch San Antonio, that is equipping with legal support and grants to small businesses, that's what I want to see. But also mid-stage companies. There's a lot of mid-stage companies that have been operating for 10 years. We have to better connect them to investment opportunities and to the Fortune 500 companies that are here to subcontract with them and move the economy forward. Thank you.
I dealt with this issue a bit when I was the Undersecretary of the Air Force. I had a monthly meeting with our office that ran our small business contract contracts. And I wanted to understand, because every meeting that I would have at the various bases, this was always an issue in terms of folks having a really hard time competing for contracts. Because I think the three most important questions any leader can ask: why not, and where's the data? And if you're talking about data and contracts, you want to look at the data. So I'm I want to make sure that with the city manager's increased ability to approve a higher amount of contracts, that we have the transparency needed to make sure we are still, in fact, making progress toward those Zepeda goals, right? Transparency leads to accountability, accountability leads to trust. I also want to make sure, and I took the time to read the Zepeda disparity report, that we've got much more diversity in who and to whom the contracts are awarded, right? You can't have all of your Zepeda contracts going to a certain group of folks, and there not being the diversity of actually the talent in our community. So I think it's going to take real transparency to make sure we're meeting those goals.
Next up is Renee Gonzalez, General Manager of the Esperanza Community Land Trust. And Mr. Pablos, you'll go first next.
Buenas tardes. Given the challenges of affordable housing and neighborhood preservation in areas like the West Side, how will you as mayor, via fair and effective policies and sufficient funding, support innovative solutions such as community land trusts, land banks, or other community-driven models to ensure that affordable housing remains accessible and local residents are not displaced?
Well, thank you. I think the first place you start is in making sure that you include the entire community in these decision-making processes. My job as mayor is going to be able to create the conditions so that developers in the community can have a reasonable dialogue, making sure that they can understand each other. And look, it'll be up to the developers to make the case for their project. But the community needs to be included. We have to make sure that it makes sense for the community. There's no doubt that we need more affordable housing, but the community needs to have a say-so as to where those projects go. And as a city, we have to make sure that we facilitate the conversation, not get in the way, and then also make sure that we bring in our tools that are needed. And look, I think the best way to ensure that quality, affordable housing is done is by getting rid of the disincentives, and the number one disincentive is the lack of cooperation and communication.
Innovative solutions would include not just going out and talking to the community, but also making sure that we start by taking a comprehensive approach and looking at where there hasn't been investment in housing. I mentioned earlier that during my tenure as Housing Trust President, we have created 7,000 homes across the city. It was all except one district. And I invite you to take a look at those districts that are voting against and who is supporting them in their decisions and in their votes. The reason I say this is because it's going to take all of us. It should not just be that council member in that district. Sometimes you have to go and talk to the community yourself, and you have to make sure that they get the buy-in. I've always believed in community land banking. As a matter of fact, I've supported that. But the other thing is that we need to reduce the time for permitting. How do we do something like what Dallas just created? The mayor of Dallas has expedited the permitting process, and I believe has it down to 8.
Yes, 8 days. Okay. It takes leadership. There are pockets of the city that do it really well. I'll tell you that the councilman in the East Side, District 2, he does that well. He uses the TERS, he's gotten really good at it, land banks, community trusts, and it's really done well. But we as a city don't have a policy for it. So we have to draft that policy, to follow that policy. And again, it takes leadership. It takes a mayor who is going to follow that and fight it. And that's what I have. I have a policy for not just in one area of town, but all over the city. And we also need to talk about Town Twin that's over on the east side and making sure that we have that kind of, they're little casitas, I don't know if y'all know about those, they're like townhomes that they're low barrier and affordable housing across the city, not just on the east side. But again, it's going to take leadership and it's going to take a strong policy that the entire council follows. Thank you.
Neighbors in the west side of San Antonio want to be in control of their destiny. They want to be in control of their neighborhood. And that comes into the development as well. And I think about the growth that we are experiencing. We must preserve the identity. the heritage and the culture that makes the West Side so special. It's the corazón de San Antonio. And that's something that we must protect. What I want to see is development that focuses on people on the West Side that are leading, West Siders that are leading that development. And also I want to look into funds that are focused on the preservation and the creation of affordable housing here in the West Side of San Antonio. And when we talk about housing, we cannot ignore the digital divide that is happening in San Antonio as well. Last time I checked, it was 17%, and I know that it has gone down dramatically. But in order to support our youth and people from the West Side, we must invest also in the digital connectivity as we progress and move forward. Thank you.
I think the West Side just has to look at other parts of town that unfortunately have seen the consequences of there not being a deliberate approach to preserving affordable homes, right? You look on the south side, you see the number of multi-unit homes there that unfortunately displace many communities there. So I would focus on being a strong advocate for our community land trust and community banks, as mentioned, simplifying as well the ways in which something like the Esperanza Community Land Trust could actually get to the funds that they qualify for, right? I mean, I think our application process is 12 pages, Austin's is 4. So part of this is really just thinking about what we are trying to accomplish, which is funding these organizations and entities doing very important work. Similarly, we have an opportunity with the 2027 bond to think about also about resourcing these entities and neighborhood preservation funds, again, that help us accomplish what we know is good not only for our city, but is also good for the West Side.
We are facing a housing crisis today. We can't wait till 2027 to do something about it. Today, we need to go ahead and ask the voters to approve a $500 million bond project that would be dedicated to helping build affordable housing across the spectrum for everybody to be able to benefit from. We need to have new homes. We need to have new apartments. We need to rehabilitate existing homes and apartments so people can age out in the homes that they're in now. We need to go ahead and support land banking. We need to support community land trusts. The city can go ahead and borrow money at 4, 5, 6% today. Today, if somebody goes to build a new project and they need to borrow money, they're paying 15, 16, 17% for that money. The city should become a partner in development in this city. Borrow at 5%, 6%, lend it at 7 or 8%, get it back as projects get built, and keep that revolving money available to continue to meet our housing crisis.
Next up is Leticia Sanchez, co-chairperson for the Historic West Side Residents Association, who will pose her question first to Dr. Rocha Garcia.
The Historic West Side resident community has many households making $26,000 or less, and seniors on a fixed income who wish to age in place. Even with the current city housing initiatives and the housing bond, there is not enough deeply affordable housing being created or rehabilitated to support our seniors and households making 30% or less of the area median income. What will you do to make changes in this area?
Thank you for the question, and definitely I mentioned the housing bond earlier, that we can't wait for 2027, and we're looking at how to put a housing bond in front of you all. One of the things that we need to do is look for owner-occupied rehab and invest more in owner-occupied rehab. I recently went through this experience with my parents. My mom broke her hip in February, and so we're trying to add all of the railings that she needs for around the house. But it made me realize that most people want to age in place. And by the way, even if we wanted to have a place where we could go and have assisted living, it's about $5,500 a month is what I've priced. There's no way that most of our community members can ever afford that. So we need to plan now, we need to plan for the future. We need to make sure that we have the creative ability to think about how to expand that bond, how to make sure that people are able to age in place, and also provide some additional units where they can also have apartment space for older adults.
We absolutely cannot wait for a housing bond, but we can't wait for a housing bond at all. We've got to make it a part of our city budget. and making part of our city budget, not just for seniors, but for our veterans and for our special needs community. It has to be a line item in the budget to make sure that our seniors, vets, and special needs community are housed. Over and over we see people that try to get we have a homestead, we maxed out our homestead exemptions at the city, and over we hear people say, I pay the maximum amount, because you have to opt into it. It should just be automatic. We shouldn't be asking people to come with us. We should always go to them. And not just that, but making it less expensive for our seniors to live. Introducing policies that lower fees, city taxes, everything that a senior has to pay for, just lower the amount. We in our communities build generational wealth through our homes. We leave our homes to our kids, to our grandkids, and that's our generational wealth. So removing that could be dramatic and devastating to our communities. Thank you.
So yesterday we were at a forum on the south side of San Antonio, and we focused a lot on the dialogue on the senior community. And we spoke about health, and housing came up several times. When I think about housing, we definitely need to look into shit, right? And making sure that our senior community is protected under their housing law. And when we talk about affordable housing, the mayor has to be responsible also in leading the dialogue at city council. We can't shy away from talking about affordable housing in council, and we need to vote in favor of affordable housing in San Antonio. We can say one thing to our neighbors and then turn around and vote against it. And I'm frustrated by that, what I see in city council in the last few years. And finally, I would say two things, right? When we talk about transit-oriented development, we have to be careful in how we're zoning the commercial spaces, because that's going to increase housing costs for a lot of senior members. And also, finally, I'll say we got to invest in our infrastructure on the west side, sidewalks, roads, and lighting. It's so important for our senior community.
One of my earliest memories is sharing a queen-size bed with my mom, my sister, and my grandmother as we were renting a one-bedroom as we were waiting for our number to be called for a Section 8 voucher. So when I think about affordable housing, it's very personal to me, and I know how important it is in our community, as if you don't even have a place to lay your head, how many other things are impossible. I also, though, want to make sure that as we're thinking about the generational investments, potential investments in our community, that we are thinking about the opportunity to address things just like this. I actually congratulated some of the SAISD folks that are part of the leadership team there for actually getting something and negotiating when it came to the Missions Baseball Stadium in a way that the city did not, right? We've got to think about what our community needs are, and if we're using public dollars, our community should get something in return for that. And again, we can't keep talking about these issues and not ask for those things.
I think first and foremost, the city needs to be a better partner in helping seniors maintain and improve their homes so that they can live there. We also need to go ahead and take a look at raising the seniors' homestead exemption. Now, some of that is being considered in Austin. I think we need to be advocates for that so that we can say that 50% of a senior's home is no longer taxable. We also need to go ahead and have CPS and SAWS put caps on what they can charge seniors for water and electricity. We need to go ahead and get the state to improve more tax breaks for seniors and to lower the cost of housing insurance. All of those are critical fees that many seniors are forced to pay that are making it difficult for them to remain in their homes. That's something the next mayor should be meeting about.
So I'd like to address the issue of depressed wages, and that is a cause for the lack of affordability. We have to make sure that we raise those median incomes on this part of town and all over town. We have to make sure that we bring quality jobs to you, make sure that we bring those jobs that are going to generate paychecks, that are going to allow you to afford the homes. Now, on the flip side with seniors, and by the way, I found out I was a senior. I'm 57 years old, and now I'm categorized as a senior, so it applies to me as well. But with respect to property taxes, which is something the city can do, we can apply what I call a taxpayer timeout. We can actually freeze property taxes for a year or two, making sure that we're not budgeting on the anticipated increase in taxes to give people a break. and it forces the city to live within its means. And that way, we have a little bit of extra money to afford the other things that we need to in our lives. But if we don't get our property taxes under control and bring quality jobs to this community, we're going to continue to go down the same road.
Next up is Mathis Gallardo, a student at the Young Men's Leadership Academy, who will pose this question to Ms. Cabello Candidatos.
Good afternoon. My name is Mathis Gallardo. I attend Young Men's Leadership Academy, and my older brother attends Lanier High School, and my younger brother attends, he's in 4th grade, he attends Promesa Academy, and he has special needs class in there. And these 3 schools help us with our own education, so that's why we're all split up in 3 different schools. And my question for y'all today is, at a time when more West Side schools are closing instead of opening, and with the state legislator just decided last night on police that will hurt our public school events more. What role do you believe in the city should play in supporting our schools, families, and students? And how will you commit improving educational outcomes for students in our community?
We as a city, we're told over and over, you got nothing to do with the city, the ISDs, the public school districts. And I was told that from the very beginning, and I defied that. I went and I sat down with the Edgewood ISD superintendent, the Northside ISD superintendent that are in my area, and I said, hey, how can the city help you? They said the same thing, y'all can't do anything. What you're never gonna hear me say is that's not my job. It's my job to represent these students just the same as any other community member. So they told me that you can, you know what you can do for me, Melissa? You can make sure that the sidewalks and the streets and the drainage leading to the school are adequate, that these kids aren't gonna be walking to school in the mud. Because you know what's gonna happen is some parents just won't send their kids to school if they're not gonna get there safely. So that's one thing we can do as a city. I've also introduced a plan for a city education liaison, a city department, a city funded department that will go out to talk with the ISDs and say, how can we help you? As far as the closed schools, we can use them for childcare centers, we can use them for training centers. They have to be community improvement centers as well. Thank you.
I'm a product of public schools, and I cannot believe what's happening at the state level. It's ridiculous. And as the mayor, you need to stand up for what is right. You need to work shoulder to shoulder with state legislators to demand more action and more funding for public schools in San Antonio. And that's the mission, that's the North Star of the mayor. The mayor should get there, should have a voice in the process. Locally, I think we can be proactive as well, right? When I talk about funding programs for seniors in high school, I want to connect them to internship opportunities. And the city can tap into ready-to-work SA, take some of that money, prioritize it, and give young people internships at emerging trend companies like cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, and bioscience. Lastly, we should reuse some of those schools that are closing for childcare facilities and after-school facilities. There's about 15 of them, 5 of them have good bones. We have to reuse them, and we have to support our youth of San Antonio.
A couple of things. I'm a proud product of public education, and now in these times with the attacks on public education, I like to say I'm a proud product of all Title I schools. So when I think about the importance of public education, it's not just in our local community, but again, it's actually so critical to our democracy too, which is why it's important that we are vocal on this issue, which is why Pre-K for SA, again, show me how many kids, how much talent we're leaving on the table, what is the bill. If we wanted to pay that, I would again argue we need to be thinking about these generational investments like Project Marble potentially, in the context of addressing these things, right? I also took the time to speak with, SAISD leadership and say, hey, how could the city have helped you with some of the schools that have closed? Immediately, they said affordable housing, right? Making sure that these communities are not depopulated is critical, and we've got to think about the role affordable housing plays as part of our education system. And then certainly, and it's great that some folks have read my plan, first 100 days, how quickly can we repurpose many of those schools that have closed into pre-K for SA or childcare?
25 years, I taught public school here in San Antonio, and I also taught at Catholic schools. I understand the challenge that we're having in our public school system. First and foremost, the state needs to fully fund our public school system and not fund budgets. Well, first of all, the city can develop more affordable housing in the inner city to attract people back to our public schools so that we have more students attending them. The city sponsors the Pre-K for SA program. It not only educates 2,000 students a year, but it helps educate thousands of others in the other school districts. We have a partnership, San Antonio Education Partnership, that has Cafe College, which helps kids move from high school into college. But we also need to more help in our elementary schools. We have too many children, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade who are failing. We need to create a core of tutors who will go into the public school system and will help those 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade students succeed in their education.
My wife Laura is a public school teacher, and I see what she's going through. And let me tell you, our children go to public schools. We have a daughter with special needs using special education services. And I want to make sure that our funding not only grows, but stays growing, because we cannot scapegoat our teachers the way we're scapegoating our teachers. We have to make sure we work with them. What we can do as a city, we can work with parents. That's really where a lot of the problems lies, and the parents don't have the support that they need. And so I want to be able to fund programs that support parents, that help them understand the system, understand what college readiness is, but also help them with their financial situation, because what we're doing is we're sending our kids to work in high school, and every minute they're out there working, they're not studying. So I want to be able to make sure that we complement and supplement that income so that children don't have to work and they can stay in school.
One of the first things that I would like to do as your mayor is bring education back to City Hall. I've been talking about this because not since Julian Castro was mayor has there been a true education committee. That education committee brought in superintendents, teachers, and we learned from them as a community about their needs. They need to be at the forefront of everything that is going on with the city. Beyond that, when the superintendents were coming in, they were highlighting different programs that were successful, sharing best practices. I believe that we needed to continue to do that. Additionally, I mentioned earlier that I'm a proud product of the San Antonio Education Partnership. I'm also a proud product of Southwest ISD. Continued investment in that type of program that helps students have the hope, the ability to be able to go to college is going to be critical. But also partnerships with communities and schools. That continued investment in communities and schools for that social emotional support is critical at this time.
Next up is Cristina Bailly, Executive Director of the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center, and her question will first go to Mr. Altamirano.
Good evening and welcome to the Guadalupe Theater. While the West Side has several of the poorest census tracts in the city, it is also culturally very rich. Several nationally recognized Latinx arts organizations have been born out of this community, and they formed a group called the West Side Arts Coalition. They have been serving the community and spurring economic development, not just for the West Side, but for the entire city. In 2021, Texas Commission on the Arts designated this area as an official cultural district named El Mero Hueso. As mayor, will you continue to support the culturally specific category in the city's hotel occupancy tax that is dispersed through the Department of Arts and Culture? And how will you increase funding for the organizations that create and preserve this precious asset that our city proudly promotes?
Thank you, Christina. My favorite thing about San Antonio is its culture, its heritage, its identity. It's something that I was on a podcast and I said it's delicious because the food is also incredible, right? And it's something that we must continue to celebrate and nurture and protect. And when we talk about the West Side, I think it's important to protect our artists as well and talk about them and support them not just by signaling or leveraging the bullet pulpit at City Council, but actually with grants, with funding mechanisms. So as mayor, what I want to do, right, is create a task force that is going to prioritize artists here on the west side of San Antonio and other parts of town. But the corazón de San Antonio is on the west side, and that's what I want to double down on, right? Another thing that we must do and prioritize is exploring funding from our corporate partners here in San Antonio, connecting artists to those private sector leaders in San Antonio, making sure that we find funding opportunities for them so that the money stays here in San Antonio and with our artists as well.
Our arts community here in San Antonio is a multi-billion-dollar sector. A lot of that rich talent comes from this side of town. I think it's important that we think about that resource as we are attracting businesses, but also attracting visitors and tourism to our community, especially the arts, the types of arts that folks might not necessarily associate with San Antonio, whether it be visual or musical or what have you. There's a rich diversity of it as I've been exposed to. I think it's also really important that we continue to invest and protect this part of our budget and expand that office, and again, really think about how we can better leverage and highlight and spotlight the talent here. Make sure we're also investing in those artists that are trying to also develop the business aspect of their art. There's a great entrepreneurial aspect to that, and in any way the city can, one, better support that and the economic benefits to our entire community, we should explore that.
I think all of us would agree that art is life, and in order to have the wonderful life we enjoy here, we benefit from the artists, local, and those who even come to San Antonio to show their art. The city, I think, has been a pretty good supporter of that, but we can do better. In the last bond issue, there was talk about increasing the amount of art per project from 1% to 2%. We ended up settling on 1.5%. But I think we should be investing more in art and investing in both performing arts as well as artists who sculpt and paint and do so many other things. And so I would be committed as the next mayor to include increasing art funding in the city of San Antonio.
You know, art funding is essential. Several years ago, Jorge Cortez and Jesse Trevino asked me, enlisted me to help rescue the Museo Alameda, the Alameda Theater. And we've tried working with the city, but let me tell you, it's very difficult to get the city to come on board and help us rescue those two gems that we have on the west side. We also work with the state to create the Zona Cultural, and our dream was to bring that Zona Cultural towards this area. And we didn't accomplish that because we lacked that support. So as your mayor, I will make sure that we get the support to continue to expand that Zona Cultural westwardly, to bring the arts. You know, when I was Hispanic Chamber Chairman, we commissioned a study that looked at the economic impact of the creative arts, and let me tell you, it's incredible. The economic impact of our creative arts is bigger than many other industries, so we have to be able to support it and protect it.
I would definitely still support the hotel occupancy tax investing, in particular in artists. One of the things that I would love to do is have an artist alley. We have so many conventions that come to San Antonio. Why not showcase our artists? Why not allow them a space to be able to sell their art and promote our rich culture? I feel like we can do so much more, even when we think about the concerts that are held at the Alamo Dome. How do we promote our small businesses? How do we allow our artists to expand their reach? That's going to take a collective effort. I've been so in awe ever since they put up the new, I call it the new Welcome to the West Side, with the Papalote and of course with the Topo by Golden Star. And it just reminds me that we have so much to offer as a cultura, and I'm so proud that this year the city medal is actually the Papalote. And I'm very proud to say that I will continue to support the art.
When we talk about San Antonio, we talk about our arts and culture because it's who we are, and that's how we express ourselves, it's how we show as a community to the rest of the world that this is who we are as San Antonians. But we have to put our money where our mouth is, and we just don't do that right now. So making sure we increase funding obviously is the way to do it, but we have to target that funding to make sure that the actual artists are getting the funds. Make sure that and not just so they can do their art, because art is also a business, right? So we have to make sure that we give them business development training. We can help them to navigate contracts, get those jobs, and really support them. Through the pandemic, a lot of us used art to get through the pandemic, right? We were entertained by art. We really should have a bigger arts and music and culture district. It's more important than a sports zone, don't you think? So I think I even think we should have specifically a music office for our artists. Time's up. Thank you.
We have time for a question from the audience, so if you have one, please step up. And that question, whatever it is, will go first to Ms. Ortiz-Jones. Please step up. All right.
Good evening.
Hi, John.
Hello. Gracias, Elaine. Great moderating. No, didn't have to break up any fights, which is always good. My name is Johnny Hinojosa. I'm the former director of SAC, but I stand in front of you just as a citizen of San Antonio and committed arts advocate. You all I feel like you all support the arts and a commitment to additional support, but I want to share with you some data and some information so that we can really, and I have two quick questions that are just yes or no's, so you don't even have to take a minute, okay? So streets, drainage, crime, affordable housing, and workforce development are all vital items for a city that holds the third largest poverty rate among U.S. cities, with up to 20% of our residents living below the poverty line. That is just data that is honest and real, and thank you again for addressing some of the ideas that you have for moving forward. But along with the military, aerospace, healthcare, and cultural tourism draws over 20 million tourists annually to San Antonio. The industry supports approximately 94,000 jobs and contributes, Ms. Ortiz-Jones, $8.7 billion to our economy. San Antonio's arts and cultural organizations impact neighborhoods, seniors, students, youth, and are the golden thread that drives tourism to our city. Yet, the only source of funding to support this vital resource comes from our hotel tax, funds that are brought in from our visitors. First simple question. If you become mayor, will you commit to creating a task force of city leaders, tourism leaders, arts leaders, and individual artists to review the current funding of arts and culture and recommend changes on growing the support the city provides to arts and cultural delegate agencies, looking at not only growing the hotel-motel tax, but finding other diverse funding mechanisms, including the general fund, to expand the city's support? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I'll also go to Austin and DC to get those funds.
Yes.
Yes.
Last week we were in the panel together.
Yes, sir.
And you asked me that question. And I hosted a panel with artists, with about 50 artists, and you demanded that answer. And I gave you the answer. It's a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have to give...
One more real quick.
Pronto.
If you are mayor, would you agree to sign a letter of support to Bexar County commissioners and the county judge to at least match the dollars that the city of San Antonio gives? It is time for them to step up. We have currently mayors and other first ladies ready to sign. Yes or no, will you sign a letter to Bexar County asking them to at least match the dollars that the city of San Antonio provides?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and not just the county, but the state and the federal government.
Yes.
Yes, it is time for them to step up.
Absolutely.
Okay. Madam,
concerned about the fact that in this community, most of these people will not be able to afford water, afford electricity, and so we have to work on climate change and really put a huge emphasis in that. So I'm hoping that you're going to do something really emphatic, and I'm extremely especially furious at CPS. I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
Can we go ahead and go to the question of what they'll do on climate change? And we can start with Mr. Courage.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, I certainly understand that climate change is dramatically affecting all of our lives. And yes, CPS needs to step up. We've had them close down their coal-fired power plants. We need to find more alternative sources of energy to bring into San Antonio, not necessarily just another gas-fired power plant. And I think that we need to go ahead and enact our own plan that we've put into the city to go ahead and make sure the city is up to date on what we can do to promote saving our environment for our community.
As a former member of the Public Utility Commission, I understand CPS and SAWS, and I will support anything that protects the air we breathe and the water we drink. Right now, we have an environmental crisis and the fact that we're leaking over 20 billion gallons of water a year. We have to be able to protect that. We also have to make sure that the electricity we're generating does not emit those poisonous gases that are affecting all of our community. So I am for making sure that we shut down all coal generation and making sure that our water is, our water supply remains up to date.
We continue to invest in items that will help us with affordability, with water, with electricity. I was basically chased down by a CPS employee because I voted against something that they presented that I did not think did enough to support the residents of the South Side. I'm very fortunate to have people representing my district that fight every single day for the affordability in the communities that they represent, and will continue to fight for that affordability. What most concerns me right now on the waterfront is the contamination that we aren't addressing. The contamination over the Edwards Aquifer that nobody is really talking about. That is one of the things that I want to bring to the forefront as your mayor, the PFAS, the PFAS. We've been talking about it at the national level. I have the honor of sitting on National Board of the National League of Cities, and we have been addressing at the federal level those things, and it's time we address them locally.
There's a lot of folks talking about the contamination over the water. It's up to us to listen. That's the big difference. Then there's such a thing as environmental racism, and that's happening here in our community. So I have to give a shout out. One of my first votes was for the Climate Action Adaptation Plan that was led by Councilwoman Ana Sandoval, who I think is here. If you're here. And then when she left council, there goes our champion, right? We just didn't focus on it. So I introduced an energy assessment council consideration request. We're out there doing work on our buildings, and we're not doing an energy assessment first. And there's old city buildings, and we have to start there. And I'm gonna be real open with you guys. The council members on this panel wouldn't sign it. So they're gonna talk here about climate adaptation, and they're gonna talk about what they do, but they're not doing it now. So we need a champion for our climate action to be able to fill out that plan and resolve that environmental racism. Thank you.
Climate change is real. And unfortunately, we are in the adaptation and mitigation stage. The next mayor needs to champion and fight against climate change. Yes or yes. And we need to be public about it as well and support sustainability efforts. I have a full plan under my website, plan210.com, that focuses just on sustainability. I want to see more investment in resilient infrastructure. It keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter. We need more trees. We need more shade and better materials that are utilized when developing city public efforts in San Antonio. We also need better active transportation so that we can decrease the carbon emissions, more walkability, bikeability, and safe neighborhoods. Finally, a champion here, Ana Sandoval, with weatherization. She led that effort. We have to demand CPS to weatherize all our homes in San Antonio. We have to make that happen. And I agree with Councilwoman Rocha. Water pollution is real. Visit online the Guajolote Ranch effort that environmentalists are pushing is real.
Okay, we have one more question from the audience.
I'm going to answer this, Ms. Ayala.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry, Ms.
Yeah, no, I
Ortiz.
appreciate this question. So the climate adaptation plan is helpful, but it is missing metrics. And if you looked at the 2023 annual report, which is based on the implementation of that plan, you would see the absence of any progress because there were no metrics to measure against. If you are talking about an annual report that includes social media impressions, I would argue you're not serious about your plan. So as the mayor, I would make sure that we had all the right stakeholders in line, making sure we get actual metrics. That should be driving our other investments and decisions. Economic development, Corporation X, what are you going to do? What are your commitments when it comes to mitigation, resilience, as well as, and so forth. Similarly, when we think about the types of corporations we want to bring here, those folks working on carbon capture, please come, right? This is your incentive. What is one of the main challenges our kids face here? Asthma, right? Really contributes to high rates of absences from school. So we can think about these investments in the context of our challenges.
Okay, we have one more question from an audience member on this side of the stage.
Hey y'all, buenas tardes. Me llamo Juani Torres. My name is Juani Torres. I'm a proud Southsider, born and raised here in San Antonio, Texas, a voter and a taxpayer. And as mayor, your responsibility will be to represent, protect, and serve all San Antonians, independent of national origin, language, or immigration status. So what I would like to hear from all of you is what is your plan to protect, serve, and represent our immigrant community independent of their status?
Mr. Courage. Mr. Courage, you go first.
Thank you. You know, the city charter does not have the word citizen in it. What it has is the word resident. And that means that the city government is committed to the safety and the well-being of its residents. And it doesn't matter where you come from or what your background is. And I think that's the important thing that the city needs to keep in mind as we look out for the interests of the people who live in this city. This has not been a city that has tried to ignore the people who've come to this city trying to better their lives. We've supported them. We're the kind of city, I think, that everybody realizes that we're in this together, and we need to support one another. It doesn't matter what your language is, what the color of your skin is. The city charter recognizes everybody here is entitled to all of the services and support that the city has to offer.
And how will you be supporting our immigrant community?
So I was born in Ciudad Obregón, Sonora, Mexico. I came to the U.S. when I was 9 years old. My parents brought us here for the same reason all immigrants come here, for a better life. They also brought us here for an education. And I am very supportive of those individuals who come here and make the trek and come here and try to better themselves. And so as mayor, I want to make sure that I'm supportive of all of them, particularly our dreamers. I've always been supportive of our dreamers. I consider myself a dreamer. Dreamers came here and they were brought here. They had no idea what was going on when they were brought here. And so we need to make sure that we protect them, give them the opportunities to educate themselves and to become productive citizens. So that's one thing I will certainly focus on.
I think it would require a continued investment in the resources that the city provides to the immigrant community. I represent residents, like the councilman said earlier. One of the first things that I did was I asked the city attorney if we could change citizens to be heard to public comment, because I knew that the residents that I represented were not all citizens. One of the things that I recently did, unfortunately, during the Cesar Chavez March, I had to leave a little bit early because overnight someone had vandalized the 53 migrant crosses that were set up by our community as a memorial to the 53 migrants that passed away. We immediately got together and we said we will not be scared. We will not let this go. We will bring the process back up. We were intimidated at some point by some people that wanted to scare us, and we did not give up, and we had this process back up by the very next month.
What I'm going to do is fight back. I'm not going to count down to our governor. I'm not going to count down to our president. We are under attack as a community. And your local government is your last and really, in some ways, only line of defense. So I'm going to fight back, like I fought against a CPS rate increase, like I fought against a mask ban, like I fought for reproductive justice. I'm going to do it just the same like all the other fights. What you see in me as a fighter, I'm not going to cow down to anybody that's going to come to our city and attack us and put us all in danger. Thank you.
Good to see you. This is a personal issue to me. My father was deported when I was 17 years old, and it impacted my family in so many ways. And I feel for the millions of Americans, because they are Americans, that are going through this challenge right now, of their families being deported and separated because of a law or a policy. It hurts my heart. What I want to do as mayor is work with our congressional leaders and make sure that we pass sound immigration reform in the United States and demand action and partner with other mayors across the country to make sure that we have a collective voice and demand action from Congress today, yesterday. Also, as mayor, I'm not going to use any city resources like SAPD to collaborate with the federal government to report or to collaborate on any immigration scheme in San Antonio. I'm going to protect our immigrant community, and we must fight back, and we must be their voice in this challenging time that San Antonio is going through.
I think a leader's number one job is to keep the community safe. And that is what I would be focused on, and being very clear about the services that are available to folks irrespective of their immigration status. And being very clear about when you try to access Service A or Service B, these are the things that you will be asked. These are the things you will not be asked, right? So people can, again, exert some agency and take advantage of those services if they're able. I'm very concerned, as a first-generation American, this is also quite personal to me, I'm very concerned, though, about the ways in which these policies, these laws are making our community less safe. When somebody's a victim of wage theft, if somebody's a victim of domestic violence, and they can't call the very people that are there to keep them safe, it puts all of us at risk. So it's important that we are clear about what we will do, what we cannot do. It is also important that we are following the law. And the state law here requires that our police work with immigration officials when asked to do so. So it's important that we do all of these things at the same time while keeping our community safe.
Okay, thank you, Juani. I'm sorry, we're at our last question, and I got the last question, sorry. I'm getting the honor of asking the last question. It goes first to Mr. Pablos. Describe the West Side to someone who has never been here.
I fell in love with the West Side the first time I came here because this is a place where I could celebrate my culture, my heritage. We are proud people. You know, I have to tell you, I grew up in El Paso, and in El Paso, we didn't have that. And that's why when I came to San Antonio, I fell in love with this place, and I've been here for 40 years. So when you come to the West Side, you will get the culture, the celebration that really represents this community. I've lived on the West Side for 8 years. I know it. And let me tell you, the restaurants on the West Side are some of the best restaurants in the world. And that's how I would describe it as with our cuisine. And I want to make sure that our restaurants stay open, stay alive, and represent our culinary arts around the world.
The West Side is very special in San Antonio. It is the heartbeat of our community. The West Side is our cultura. The West Side is hardworking people who make the city of San Antonio's economy go around. And the West Side of San Antonio will always have a special place in the hearts of all of San Antonians because it reminds us of our true compass. It reminds us that we need to take the opportunity to invest in one another, to have compassion with one another. When I think of the West Side, I think of, yes, absolutely, the panaderias. I think about about the beautiful piñatas. Yes, I think about the food, like Mr. Pablo said. But more importantly, I think about the beautiful fighting spirit of the West Side. I think of the abuelitas that are raising grandchildren. I think about the tias and tios who make sure that we go home and don't do anything that we're not supposed to, or else they're going to tell on us, right? And then grandma's going to throw the chancla. But more importantly, I love the West Side. I want to make sure everybody loves it too.
Describing the West Side is color and beauty and art and culture and pride and salt of the earth people. And to me, it's family. Thank you.
The West Side. You know, when I moved my company to the West Side, I was hanging out with Taqueria. And someone said, oh, te cambiaste el mero hueso de San Antonio. I said, what do you mean? El hueso, el mero hueso, the West Side of San Antonio, corazón de San Antonio. And it impacted me, right? Es el mero hueso de San Antonio. Y pienso en su pasión, ¿sí? Pienso en su gente, que es trabajadora, no se dan por vencida. Pienso en su visión, y en su cultura, y en su identidad, y lo que representa para San Antonio. And for me, that's very powerful. And I think that's a story that the next mayor needs to celebrate every day. And that's a story that we need to tell to the United States. That's a story that we must protect and that we must celebrate every day. Thank you.
I would describe the West Side as somebody, I would say this is a part of town that despite being underinvested in, has produced some of our country's greatest talents, some of which are here this evening. Two secretaries of housing, the first Latina to serve on a city council in our country. So a rich community, vibrant, and with as much talent and as much of a bright future as any part of any community in our country, if we are willing to invest in the basic things that everybody would expect, right? A fair shot at a good job, ensuring their kids are safe at school, going to school, are able to fully participate in our community, and make sure that we are practicing our values. But really that starts with that leadership. These aren't things that can just happen. You've got to have a leader prioritizing these things and really fighting to address some of these long-term inequities. And I would do that as your next mayor.
You know, like I said at the beginning, I've been here over 50 years, and I've walked the streets of the West Side and many other parts of the city. So I would describe the West Side by saying a few words like food, some of the best, art, everywhere, culture, everywhere, uniqueness. Also, much is missing, but there are a lot of possibilities.
The candidates now will make their closing statements, each getting 1 minute. This time will begin in reverse of opening statements on the opposite side of the table, with Mr. Courage going first.
Well, you've heard a lot about what people think they would like to do as your next mayor, but let me tell you about things I have done. As the mayor, I've gone ahead and asked people in my district to tell me how they want to spend millions of dollars and let them vote on projects that they wanted in our area. I'm the only councilman who wanted to provide safety for newborn children by putting safe baby boxes and fire stations around the city. I'm the only city councilman who said, I think there are too many guns on this street, and I've sponsored 2 weapons exchanges that have taken 1,500 guns off the street. And just yesterday, we introduced a brand new program to help people who are in medical debt. 45,000 of your friends and neighbors, to a tune of $60 million, will be relieved of that medical debt. Those are the kinds of things that I have done as a city councilman, and I'd like to do a lot more as your mayor.
Let's go, Ms. Gina, please. Jones, please.
ROTC scholarship that took me from John Jay High School to Boston University, one of the very first things I had to do there was sign a piece of paper that said I will not engage in homosexual behavior, because don't ask, don't tell was the policy at the time. That experience always showed me when you are in charge, when you are leading, make sure you are always questioning, who am I not hearing from, and why am I not hearing from them? So not only have I led a large organization, 600,000 folks, manage a large budget, 173 billion, skills I look forward to bringing in service to our community, I would argue that latter, very personal experience is important when we're thinking about actually addressing some of the challenges in our community. Many of the questions that you all talked about, whether you're talking about the climate plan, whether you're talking about the investments around tours, is because there has not been sufficient attention in really, one, looking at the data and giving due respect to many of the voices that would be most impacted by some of these decisions. So as your mayor, I look forward to leading with everybody in mind. Thank you.
I'm excited about the future of San Antonio. I really am. And I know we're facing generational challenges that require generational change. But I'm excited about our future in San Antonio. I believe in the potential of every San Antonio, in the power and the values of every San Antonio. The next mayor needs to have the vision and needs to have the energy to drive this city forward. I spent about 5 months on a listening tour, visiting every corner of the city. Here on the west side, we were at Progreso Home, and I heard directly from people issues like childcare, after-school care, good paying jobs, climate action, crime. I translated all those issues into a plan that I call Plan 2.0, just like Henry Cisneros did with Target 90, or Julian Castro with SA 2020. And I'm focusing on infrastructure, economic development, and opportunity, and public safety. My vision for San Antonio is taking care of the immediate needs, the broken streets, the safe neighborhoods, but it's also building a future grounded on economic opportunity, inclusivity, and innovation. Thank you, San Antonio.
My service to my hometown is really a love letter to San Antonio. This city has my heart, and we have done a really good job as a city of raising up our prodigal sons. Congressman Henry B., Secretary Cisneros, Secretary Castro, Congressman Castro, and we should. They're our heroes. But we don't do the same for our daughters. We failed, Maria Reyes. We failed, Luis Castro. We failed, Graciela Sanchez. We failed, Elisa Vanderpute. We shouldn't do that again. We all know in Latino households, the men may be out front, but the women run the show, right? Now it's time for women to come to the forefront. Men have had their moment in this city. My name is Melissa Cabello Haberdan, and I'm ready to be your first Latina mayor of San Antonio.
Yo soy la concejala Adriana Rocha García. Soy producto de aquí, del West Side de San Antonio, y les quiero agradecer por su énfasis y su esperanza en que alguien les va a continuar a ayudar. Yo soy hija del pueblo, soy hija de inmigrantes, pero también soy hija de la comunidad. Me va a tomar una vida entera para agradecerles todo lo que han hecho por mí. Y por eso yo quiero seguir luchando por sus hijos. Quiero seguir luchando por el progreso de San Antonio. Quiero seguir luchando por ustedes. I am the product of San Antonio. I am San Antonio. I am happy to be able to represent you and to say that I didn't just start working hard the last 2 years. I've been working for you all the past 6 years. I am honored to have the endorsement of the newspaper this go around. I encourage you to go look at it and see what I have done in the past.
I'd like to work with you to honor the promise of San Antonio. I want to live in a safe city, a prosperous city, a city where every family can thrive, where we protect our seniors, our disabled, our veterans. Let's do this together. Let's work on economic empowerment, particularly from this side of town, once and for all. I'm Rolando Pablos, and I ask for your vote.
That's it. Thank you to Star West, the executive committee, and to the events facilitator, Olivia Trasviesa. Travieso of the OCI group. And most especially to all of you for being here tonight. We also give thanks to our host, Cristina Bailly of the Guadalupe Theater, to our entertainment pre-forum, Santiago Jimenez Jr., who told me that Flaco's not doing well, so keep him in your prayers, and to the Gonzaga Foundation that made this possible. Now it's up to voters. Early voting is April 22nd to April 29th. The polling locations go to bear.org and to the elections tab. The election is Saturday, May 3rd. It is Fiesta. Remember that there's an important bond election on your ballot too that will help the Alamo colleges grow to meet the city's needs. Take your family, take your kids, remind your neighbors. A likely runoff, sorry guys, is scheduled for sometime in June. I don't have the date. Does anybody have the date? The 7th, June 7th. Okay, y'all would know. And don't wait until then to make your voice heard by voting. If you'd like to speak to the candidates, and I know there's so many questions to ask and we can't get to all of them, their members of their staff will be in the gallery right off the lobby of the theater. Please meet them there. And thank you so much for being here. Adelante.